I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour. Happy Tuesday. For our first story today, we are going over Kanye West's bid to buy Parler. So, have you guys ever heard of the app called Parler? It's known as kind of the social media platform with no filter, with no rules. It's a favorite of QAnon conspiracists and prides itself on championing free speech, quote unquote. And now Kanye wants to buy it. Realistically, though, Parler is more of a haven for hate speech and conspiracies, like I said, seen as the only place that Twitter and Facebook as a company really draw the line is with rhetoric that can lead directly to harm, spreading lies that can hurt people, or promoting discrimination. Kanye didn't get kicked off Twitter for talking about an economic agenda or being pro-life. He literally said he wanted to go, quote, DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, end quote. That's not a political opinion. It is a fucked up, violent, and discriminatory thing to say. But he's now trying to pose Parler as a space for conservative voices. And I'm sure there are conservative voices on Parler, but since when is DEFCON 3 to Jewish people really what the conservative community in America stands for? It's not. Parler was even removed from both Google and Apple's app stores, as well as Amazon's web hosting service, because of the role that it played in the January 6th Capitol riots. Those who organized the riots used Parler to plan their deadly invasion of our nation's most sacred space. But the company came to some compromises and was eventually allowed back on those platforms. So they did kind of come to the middle a little bit, but coming to the middle is not something Kanye is going to be doing, let's face it. I also want to pose a last question here before we change topics. Kanye versus Elon Musk, question mark? What's also interesting here is that Kanye could, in theory, be going up kind of against Elon Musk in a sense, because it seems that Elon is still in negotiations with Twitter to buy their platform. And if he does so, he has promised to make it a more free platform, which we all take to mean allowing more hate speech and falsehoods to circulate. If that were the case, would Parler and Twitter end up as kind of competitors in this free speech social media space? Who knows? These are both pretty impulsive billionaires who seem to have turbulent relationships and short attention spans. So we'll just have to wait and see if these deals even go through. But regardless, it will definitely be something interesting to watch together. So bust out the popcorn, babes. We will keep you posted on this topic. And next up for you guys, we have some Russia updates. So there have been some pretty bad bombings and shellings over in Ukraine, you guys. Russia has been shelling all over the country, but this pretty much was preempted by Ukraine blowing up the bridge between Russia and Crimea. But now Russia has really crossed the line, stepped things up, and gone back to shelling the capital, Kyiv. At least 3 people were killed there yesterday when they started shelling during rush hour with explosive drones designed to crash into their targets and explode. 2 of the 3 people killed in Kyiv were a young couple expecting a child. The mother was 6 months pregnant, you guys. People were also injured and trapped in the rubble left by this attack. And next up for our Russia updates, if you guys remember, the American women's basketball star, Brittany Greiner, is still detained in Russia for having THC hash on her at the Russian airport. She has a card for medicinal use here in the US, but in Russia, weed is still totally illegal. So they detained her at the airport and gave her a very lengthy jail sentence. And most political analysts believe this to be politically motivated. And now that she's been there so long, she's really getting worried and her mental health is deteriorating because she is scared that she's going to be moved to a tougher Russian prison, even though where she is really tough already, and that she won't be freed by the American government. Her wife has said she's only been able to talk to Brittany twice during her detainment since February. And the second phone call, she said, was so disturbing that she cried for days afterwards. The Russian government knows to play their cards right with Brittany, so they are likely waiting for just the right thing to cash in their chips in exchange for her freedom. Meanwhile, our State Department is trying its best and doing everything it can to get Brittany home. And speaking of arriving home, unfortunately, many young Russian men are currently making their way back to their homeland in coffins. The Russian people, if they weren't tuned in before, they are definitely going to feel the effects of this quote-unquote peacekeeping effort where their sons were being used as cannon fodder. It is said that many of these young men are without shoes, hung over, and were only trained once how to use a gun. They are simply put, not equipped to go to war. Plain and simple. And yet Putin continues to put them on the front lines to die for a war that shouldn't be happening in the first place. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Never bend your head, always hold it high, look the world right in the eyes." If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfree media today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from